What's going on, YouTube people? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me on part 23 of I Am Taking Solihull Moors. Well, I have now took Solihull Moors to the Premier League. In today's episode, we are going to be doing things slightly differently. The first thing that you'll notice is we have now jumped forward. It's the 1st of June 2030, and that means that our entire Premier League campaign has actually been complete. With the release date of FM24 getting ever closer, now I feel is the time to start moving this series on, and we're going to wrap it up in the next 2 episodes. So this episode and the next episode will be full seasons, and I'll show you how we are going to get on in the conclusion of our final 2 seasons in charge at Solihull. We're then going to start to ramp things up as FM24 is released, and there will be new series coming to the channel. Plus, there are already FM24 videos on the channel. If you haven't checked them out already, please go and do so. And whilst you're there, hit the like and subscribe to the channel. But back to Solihull Moors. So, in this episode, we are going to show you everything that's happened in that 29-30 season in the Premier League. Firstly, we're going to go through the transfers as usual. We're going to go through the finances, the club vision. We're going to show you what happened in the Premier League and the cup competitions. And we'll have a quick run through of the squad as we go into the next season in the next episode. So kicking things off, let's have a look at some of the players that have left. Now you can see on the right hand side we did lose quite a few players. Most of them have gone out on loan. There are a few players who have gone out for cash values. If we start off with Aidan Hale, he's a player that couldn't get in the first team, and at the age of 22 now he's probably past the point of where we can develop him. 50,000 came in for him, so we have allowed him to move on. The next one that went out for cash was Thierry Katsakunya. He's a player who wanted to play as a centre-back. We really couldn't get him in that role. As you can see, can play a number of other positions, but he wanted to play as a no-nonsense centre-back. We don't really play with those kinds of players. So he asked to move on, and we allowed him to leave. We did develop him after he left Aston Villa, but he's one now that gets us, I think it was £240,000 as he's moved on to Bolton. The next one to leave was Caden Rodney. I think he was another free transfer that came in from Crystal Palace, so there was no real downside to the move. Again, wanted to play in his preferred position of right back. We couldn't really get him in as a wing back, so he had competition from a few other players. He asked to leave the club. We decided to allow him to move to Charlotte FC. If we have a look further on down, there's a couple of other players that have moved for small amounts of cash. Leon Marsden went to Rochdale for £2,700. But the next one to leave that is an established name is Roman Quintine. Again, a right back that couldn't get into the squad. Can play further up the pitch, but another one that got disgruntled at not being able to break through into the first team. And we simply allowed him to move on. I think it was for £20,000. So again, I think he was a free transfer, so it's nothing lost, and we actually made £20,000 off of the sale. But on the left hand side of the screen, you can see that we have actually spent quite a bit of money. So to prep for the Premier League campaign, we actually bought 3 players to start with, and then going into the January transfer window, we went and boosted the squad with another 4 signings. So if we introduce you to them one by one, first one was David Martinez. He has come from Talleres. £10 million paid for the big centre-back. He's one that is a calm influence in the back line. 32 years old, brings a bit of experience, so hopefully he can be what we need in the Premier League. Luckily for us, he can also cover as a left-back, which is a good trait where you can have 2 different positions. It actually says that his best position is a left-sided defender, but I do think that he can play through the middle with his height and his attributes. So £10 million bought him in, and next to him we got another Talleres player, and we got Matthias Nora. He is a right-sided fullback, which is why those 2 right-sided players couldn't get into the squad basically. But once again, he's another one of those players that we could play as a centre-back. Only 5'10", so not the best for things like set pieces, but you just score highly for teamwork, bravery, determination, tackling, and his physicals are really good as well. So another one that is going to be a bit of a work in progress at 19 years old. I think he's a sound purchase to go alongside his former Talleres teammate. The other player that came in in the summer transfer window was Danilo Giulietti from Darmstadt for £2.8 million. And once again, he's very much a work in progress, but one who can play in 3 positions in the centre of the park. And the 21-year-old Italian looks set to become a very, very good footballer. Again, 5'10", not the tallest, but when you look at some of his attributes, technique, first touch, determination, already has a good set of physicals. I think once he develops into the player that he can be, he'll be an absolute beast of a midfielder. So, moving into the winter transfer window, we added 4 more players. Looking for a bit of experience in the first one, Charlie Webster had been around a few clubs, 26 years old now. You can see him there in a Chelsea shirt. But basically, we were a bit soft in the middle of the park. I wanted another player who can play as a defensive midfielder or a central midfielder, and he fit the bill for the price. I think it was around £350,000 from Barnsley. 300,000 actually, even better of a bargain. The next player to come in is one of those wonder kids from Brazil. Can you imagine Solihull Moors signing Brazilians? Well, Luis Guilherme has arrived in the Midlands, and he now plays for Solihull Moors. 24 years old now, probably hasn't developed as well as he should have done considering his status as a wonder kid, but he does have attributes that are starting to trend up, and hopefully once he gets into the first team and has a run of games, he will be able to become the star player that he requested to come to England. The next player is Ashley Phillips, so you might notice a trend here, another central defender, another one that has come from a Wonder Kids list. Ashley Phillips is probably a bit of a dark horse for a Wonder Kid coming from Blackburn, but he does have a good set of physicals. He has good tackling, he has good vision, teamwork, and basically is an all-rounder. As a central defender, 6'5", also is an advantage from set pieces. I think he will be a sound acquisition. And the final player is Eddie Valdo. He was recommended from a scout. Now this one has been a bit of a mixed bag. He has ended up being signed and being transfer listed all in the space of a couple of months. This player has become a bit of a nutcase, discipline issues. I think at the last count he has missed training or match day 7 times. We basically brought him in to be a centre-back or a no-nonsense defensive midfielder, and he turned into prime Ronaldinho for his partying. So a bit difficult really to gauge where he is on the scale of being a good regen or new gen, whichever they are, but if he was to put it all together, looking at his attributes, he should be a very, very good player. So those were the signings that we made to try and influence our first ever Premier League campaign. How did the campaign go? Let's look at the competitions tab and reveal that we didn't finish in the top half, but we did finish in 13th place, which is quite respectable for a team that has come from where we have and is having their first season ever in the Premier League. We ended up with a record of 38 games played, 14 games won, 7 draws, 17 losses, a minus 17 goal difference. Now you can really see why I was buying defender after defender. 49 points. Now the weird thing here is that Tommy Lonergan ends up as our top goal scorer. He got 15 goals, but he didn't really play much in the second half of the season, so a lot of those goals came early on. In the FA Cup, we were knocked out in the 3rd round by Wolves, and in the Carabao Cup, we were knocked out in the 2nd round by Plymouth Argyle. So a bit disappointing in the cup competitions, but in terms of the Premier League, if we go a bit more in depth and have a look at the actual competition, so we can see here that Chelsea ended up being winners by a point from Newcastle and 3 points from Liverpool, and we finished on 49 points, so we were 30-ish points behind the leaders, 29 to be exact. I think that's quite respectable. Finished nowhere near the relegation zone. We were 12 points clear of Fulham, who ended up getting relegated, so a decent season all in all. The only problem really that we had, as you can see by the stats on your screen here, was we had disciplinary issues with Orr getting 17 yellow cards, Giulietti getting 15 and McKinnon getting 12. There's probably other players that aren't in the top 4 for bookings, but it did seem like we were having disciplinary issues every single game, and there was red cards, there was bookings, there was just basically massacres in terms of squad rotation because of the fact of not having all of our best first team players available all the time. Honourable mention here goes to Raul. He managed to get himself an average rating of 7.31 in the Premier League. If we go into the goals and just show you, as I said, so Tommy Lonergan actually finished in joint 9th. He got 15 goals from 24 appearances. As I said, towards the end of the season, he did pick up an injury, which meant that he didn't play in every single game that we could have. He had 12 further substitute appearances, so he was kind of on the borderline of fitness, but could never really get in that rhythm of picking up game time when it was most important. And I think that is a position that we need to look at for next season. So going into the club vision and finding out how we have got on there. In terms of the actionable objectives, working within the wage budget is fine. Minimum 3-year contracts for first team players were not judged on, and they are currently expanding the stadium. There is a bit of a shock in the next episode because it hasn't been announced here, I don't think. The club is planning, but we are basically going to expand the stadium by about 2,500 seats, I think it is, which could lead to us actually having to move out of our own stadium for the time being. The 5-year plan, attempt to avoid relegation from the Premier League. They're reserving judgment for that, but we have achieved that at least. For this season, whether we do it next season or not is a different matter. It's all going to come down to what money is available to us in the summer. In terms of the board feedback, the board are pleased with our overall leadership of the team. Play possession football, they're satisfied. It's quite difficult in the Premier League when your squad isn't as good as the other teams around you. Play attacking football pleased. Play entertaining football pleased. High tempo pressing, very pleased. Make the most of set pieces, very pleased. The highlights, pleased with the comprehensive 3-0 Premier League triumph against Crystal Palace. Pleased with a 4-3 victory against Brighton. Fairly pleased with the quality of pressing on display using the Gegenpress style. They were concerned about a 1-2 Premier League defeat against Leicester. Quick look at the supporters reveals a B from them. And once again, they were pleased with the attacking football, satisfied with the possession football. Very pleased, make the most of set pieces, play high tempo pressing football, very pleased too, and play entertaining football. So all in all, our job is secure going into the final season of the Save. If we have a look at the finances for what's available for next season, so going into the 30-31 campaign, there is £41.6 million in the bank, and we have a transfer budget of 49.5. We have a wage budget of 636,000, which is absolutely absurd for Solihull Moors, but we are only spending 531,000 of that, so plenty of new signings should be available to come in for the final season. So let's break down a little bit what happened in the league campaign by looking at the schedule. So you can see that we were flying in pre-season, but look at some of the teams that were playing pre-season means absolutely nothing, because when it got down to it, we started off with a 2-2 draw against Newcastle, a 3-0 defeat to Liverpool, a 2-2 draw with Arsenal, and then we got knocked out by Plymouth in the Carabao Cup. We then lost 5-0 to Chelsea before bouncing back with a 4-0 victory against Leicester and a 2-1 victory against Crystal Palace. We then had some kind of form going into October before we got absolutely hammered by Manchester City. Coming into November, there was a defeat to Tottenham, but 2 wins in that month saw us gaining points. Brighton we lost. Manchester United, we beat Manchester United 1-0 at home. Dejan Tetek getting the goal, that gave us 3 points there, but sadly we couldn't follow up on that as we lost 3-1 to Wolves. We then did have some good results against Everton and Fulham before getting absolutely annihilated by a very, very good Southampton team that at one point were 3rd in the league and were absolutely flying. Yeah, that was a disappointing moment in the season. Then coming out of 2029, we had a victory against West Ham and we kicked off 2030 with a 4-0 victory against Leeds. Then though, it all kind of went south. Anybody who plays Football Manager might be familiar with what happened here. We went on an absolute wobble, ended up trying to change the tactics a little bit, couldn't get anything going. Had 2 draws in and amongst a lot of defeats, and there were games that really we could have been doing with picking up the points. Luckily for us though, we weren't getting too badly outplayed in the month of February. Moved into March and we got a 1-0 victory against Wolves, which was a very good result. However, we got hammered 6-0 by Manchester United and had 2 players sent off, which, as I said, is a very big issue with the discipline. Then lost to Bournemouth but beat Derby 3-1. We had a close game against Liverpool where we lost 4-3, but once again had a player sent off. Got hammered 5-0 by Tottenham for a 4-3 victory against Brighton. And then in the final month of the season, look at this for a running of fixtures. We played Chelsea and lost, Arsenal and lost, Crystal Palace and won, and Leicester and lost. So all in all, lots of up and down moments in the season. There was that big slump in form in January and February, but luckily for us there were enough matches that we were winning to make sure we were secure in the league. So once again, just to double check where we were at, 13th place, 38 games played, 49 points, minus 17 is the big issue for us. If we head into the squad planner and have a little look at our assistant report, let's see how he lines us up. So he's saying our best 11 would be Bryn, Murphy, Eddie Valdo or an O'Keefe. That's absolutely amazing because Eddie Valdo is hardly at the club. Williams, Honeyman, Tetek, Giulietti, and then Springett, Rowell and Lonergan. If I have a little look at Eddie Valdo, I'm wondering if we can have a look at his... Let's look at his happiness. Yeah, so it doesn't really come up here. It says that he's happy with game time. We ended up transfer listing him because he's an absolute nutcase. I can't think off the top of my head how we would get that information. But yeah, there was a lot of time where he just basically decided to do what he wanted to do. Is there a coach report maybe? Eddie Valdo tends to be a peripheral figure in the squad. First touch, tendency not to fulfil his marking duties. Marking's not his strong points. So he has potential to go on and be a decent defender in the Premier League. But as I said, an absolute nutcase, which is quite surprising considering here it says he has a fairly determined personality, but basically just does not want to play football. He wants to be a party animal. If we go to the best 11 screen, we can see that James Quinn has decided Bryn, Murphy, Eddie Valdo or an O'Keefe. Williams, Honeyman, Tetek, Giulietti, Springett, Rowell, Lonergan. And those purple players coming through are Lozano, Pippen, Josh Rogers, Matthias Nora, Doy, Dale Shelton, Sam Suarez, Sean Larkin, Paulo Vitor, Beveridge and Kambala. So a little bit alarming that we've got a lot of players there that aren't really going to make the grade, I don't think. Pippen has quite dropped off. He hasn't developed as I thought he would. Dale Shelton has gone out on loan, can't really develop. Sam Suarez is not developing either. Kambala up top looked like a promising player but didn't really make the grade. We've got Beveridge who scores goals in the Premier League, so he's not a problem. Paulo Vitor has struggled to get past Springett on the left. But all in all, we have got a team that is really going to need to step up in the second season if we're going to progress. Not really sure what the future will hold if the team cannot get stronger. Got a lot of money available to us if we want to go out and improve. The question is, can we attract the players that we need to get us out of a situation where we're going to struggle in the Premier League? That is the big question, and that is what is going to be answered in the final episode. So, as I said, we are going into the final episode to wrap up the series. We're going to have another crack at the Premier League and see where we can get to. Hopefully, we're going to spend a lot of money. We're going to try and revamp the team. We may need to have a look at the tactics if we go on another slump like we did in January and February in this season. But it should be an exciting conclusion to this series. If you're still with me at this point of the video, firstly, a big thank you. Secondly, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the finale and all of the FM24 content that is going to be coming your way. As I keep saying, we are just days away from the release of the brand new game. Hopefully, it's going to be very soon. We can all get onto the game and enjoy a brand new FM experience, the final one in this iteration. Before you go, don't forget to check out the FM23 content that's on the channel. There is lots of it. There are Let's Plays, hints, tips, tutorials, Wonder Kids, you name it, there's something for everybody on the channel. But for this one, I'm going to leave it there. Come back and join me for the finale in the last episode, and I'll see you soon.